Welcome to the Worth Listening podcast, where we focus on having positive and productive conversations around money. I'm your host, Lauren, a 4-time Olympian and certified financial planner. On this show, my guests share their money stories. Everyone has a unique story and experiences both wins and losses when it comes to money. My intent is to give listeners something they can relate to, something that builds their courage to be open and take control of their own money story. When I'm not creating a great show for my listeners, I'm running my company, Worth Winning, where I help individuals and families organize their finances. Check us out at worth-winning.com. All right, now on with the show. I love having athletes on the show. It's been great learning the reality of how various sports earn, and to ditch some of those stereotypes and myths around how athletes themselves earn, save, or spend their money. Today, I'm excited to have Jeneba Tarmoh here to share her money memoir with us. She is a professional track and field athlete, Texas A&M Aggie, and a 2012 Olympic gold medalist. Jeneba came from humble beginnings where she learned that it took hard work to make things happen. And she'll share that it actually wasn't a passion for running that led her to track. As Jeneba tells her personal story, she also shares a lot about the way track and field athletes earn a living and some changes she believes are important to better the sport for generations to come. However, she is not just an athlete, but so much more, and you'll understand what I mean as she tells her story. So without further ado, let's listen as Jeneba shares her money memoir with us. Jeneba, thanks so much for being on the show today. I'm super excited to have another track and field athlete on the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you reaching out.
So frequently as athletes, we're defined by our performance. So people would introduce you on a stage if you were going to do a public speech and say, Olympic gold medalist, Jeneba Tarmoh. But there's so much more to us than just our performance as athletes. So give us how you would introduce yourself. Who are you?
I would introduce myself as the lovely, heavenly queen of, I'm joking. I would say Jeneba Tarmoh. She has a wonderful personality. She loves her family. She loves God. To know her is to love her. To hate her is a crime. To not know her, you're missing out on something. But I would say something along the lines of my personality and then say Jeneba. I do believe that I'm so much more than athlete. I'm a person.
Yes, we want to get to know you, the person, today. So let's start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about where you're from, your upbringing, and if you could work in that process, what your first memory of money was.
Well, I am from San Jose, California. I like to tell people that I grew up in an African house on an American street. So my upbringing was extremely African. But we spoke English when we left for school and talked to people outside the house.
What language did you speak in the house?
We spoke Creole and Mende. Those are West African languages, primarily from people who are from Sierra Leone.
That's pretty dope. Okay. And so in that upbringing, do you have siblings? What kind of financial background did your family come from? Was it kind of humble upbringing or very lavish lifestyle?
Oh, it's extremely humble. With the African culture, everybody is your cousin. And oftentimes your cousins who are your first generation cousins are your sibling. So I had several siblings. Let's say that. My mom raised us very close to my auntie's kids. So growing up, it's about 12 of us in a 3-bedroom house. And money was tight. It was very, very tight because my mom was a single mom taking care of everybody. Our needs were met. I can say that. We had everything that we needed. We had food. We had a roof. We had clothes if we needed it. But my mom was the kind of mom who would buy shoes bigger than they are. And then you had to grow into it. But in the meantime, you just put some tissue in it or some stockings or something so it can fit. That was my mom. I remember taking baths. When we were younger, my mom hated when we wasted water. So she would have us do baths the African style where we fill a bucket up and we only can use 1 or 2 buckets of water. And that was our shower. You take a cup, you fill the bucket up with water, and that's it. You put the soap on your body, you rinse it off, and you get out because she's not paying any extra money for the water bill.
Would you say that's the first memory of money? Is that the one thing that stands out to you about your childhood?
The funny thing about that was I didn't even know that's abnormal. I didn't know that that was not what Americans did. So I wouldn't say that's the first thing that stood out in my childhood. I'd more so say now when I look back, I see what my mom did to save money. So I see the importance of what you have to do to sacrifice to save money and realize that your money is extremely valuable, just like how your time is valuable. So like you don't spend too much time in the shower because that's extra money, you know?
Right. Yes. And that also applies for a Caribbean upbringing. So as a Caribbean American girl, yes, my grandmother would come and we'd be like, oh, Lord, save us, please. Because she would put that bucket and she said, you better not look, get a drop outside the bucket or use more that's in than what I put in this bucket. So
Yeah.
believe me, I can feel you on that one. Okay, so sibling wise, with the people that were in the household that you're calling siblings, was there sort of a mentality around money with them? You know, at that age group, we were kind of all on the same level. So it's like, oh, so and so is a saver and I'm a spender. And what kind of influences did you get from the other children in the household about money?
I was one of the younger ones, so I didn't have a concept of money until maybe like the 6th or 7th grade. But what my siblings would do, my older sister and then my older cousins, they all got their first jobs when they were 16 or 17. And it was strictly a summer job because my mom didn't want any of us to work until after we graduated high school. So they would just go get summer jobs and whatever they earned, however they earned it, they would come and shower us, the younger ones, with gifts. So my idea of money was somebody works for you and they help you out. And I was one of the younger ones. I was the second to last one. So everybody did stuff for us.
Do you think that the kind of spoiled child stereotype, that's something that carried on? Like now that you're older, you're still one of the youngest ones of the older ones. So do you have spoiled tendencies?
Sometimes, but not with my finances. I do have spoiled tendencies, though. I'm not even going to lie. I can't even lie.
And so what were the talks about money? You said money was tight. You can remember that as a visual point in your life, but was there conversations about money or conversations about savings? Was there a requirement to put your allowance in a bucket or anything like that?
There was no talk about money because there was no extra money that we were going to get. We didn't get no allowance for birthdays. I think we got a birthday card, if that. My mom did not give us money. Even for school, it was like, I'm putting this on your school account. So there was not much talk about money. I took it upon myself to learn about money, and I saw what my mom was going through to earn money. She had 2 full-time jobs. So I'd probably see her 3 times a week. And that's what made me realize that you have to work really, really hard to get whatever you want in this life. And on top of her taking care of us in America, she had 12 brothers and sisters in Sierra Leone that she was taking care of as well, including their kids and paying for their school fees. So we wouldn't get any extra stuff outside of food and school supplies and if we had field trips. But that was about it. And she didn't talk to us about money. She didn't let us know that she was stressed out. But as children, we can see that she was.
Yeah, I think so often we take for granted what it is that you, like you said, in the moment, you had everything you needed. You were okay and taken care of. But looking back on it, you can tell the feelings and the emotions that came with how hard she was working to be able to take care of not just the immediate family, but the extended family as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's talk a little bit about when you started track. Where did that start to come into play? And we know that there's expenses related to it. So how did you become allowed to participate in it and get your start there?
Well, that was because of money, to be honest. I started running, honestly, because I wanted to get this guy's attention in middle school.
Mm.
And getting his attention, I ended up getting my high school coach's attention. And he was like, I got to get that girl. She needs to come run with me, blah, 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 because she has a lot of potential. And I wasn't trying to run. I was just trying to get boo thing over there. So the high school coach does everything in his power to get me to go to that high school. And during that time, I'm not sure if this still happens, but when I was in high school, we can only go to certain schools that were called our home schools. So the school that this high school coach wanted me to go to was outside of my home school. It wasn't far. It was within the same district, but it wasn't where I was supposed to go to. It wasn't the feeder school for me. So we did what we can do to go to that school. Well, my parents did what they could do for me to go to that school. I did everything I could to not go to that school. So one day, the high school coach, Steve Nelson, comes to the house and he's talking to my mom and dad. And he says, I can get your daughter a full scholarship to college if she comes with me. And of course, you know, what parent is going to turn that down?
Right.
So my mom was like, all right, she's running track, whether she likes it or not, because she's going to go to school and it's going to be for free. So thank you. And I went to high school and started running track. It was really, really hard to afford the expenses in high school. And I was so afraid to ask my mom for any extra money because I knew that she was working so hard. And if she couldn't afford it, you know, parents are going to be stressed. So as children, we also protect our parents as much as our parents protect us.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would do was I would go to the flea market that was at my high school at the time, and I would pick up trash. And every time I picked up trash, I'd probably earn about $200 for that day. So I did that for 4 years, and that's how I paid to go to certain track meets throughout the country. On top of doing that, I sold beef jerky, you know, part of the school fundraisers. And then my sister also worked at Costco. So she would buy candy and tell me to sell it on campus, and I would sell it. So I pretty much had been a hustler.
Right. The entrepreneurial spirit kicked in and you had to make some things happen.
Right. So, yeah, I started picking up trash.
Hey, get it how you live, right?
Right.
Okay, so it sounds like education was also a very important thing. You know, your mom made that kind of executive decision. If this is going to give you the opportunity to get a free education, then we're on it. And thinking about education, what kind of went into the process of going from high school to college and being recruited, and what kind of things were you thinking about? Was track just like a means to get the education, or was it like, oh, I can take this to the next level? And
track was strictly the means. It was never my passion. It was something that I knew I had to do because when I was 12 years old, I had promised my mom that I was going to go to college. And the only way I can fulfill that is through track.
what did you want to go to school for when you were 12?
I wanted to be a fashion designer.
And what did you end up going to school for?
Psychology. I know, that's life for you. But I wanted to be a fashion designer. I already had my clothes drawn. I had everything drawn. I was the perfect little artist when I was 12. But then by the time I got to college, I had so many friends who had dysfunctional families and households that I wanted to be a social worker. And then I took the psychology course and I fell in love with psychology then. So
That's pretty cool.
I was supposed to go to school for fashion design, but I went for psychology.
I mean, life takes us all sorts of different places. And I think that's one of the things that it's important to remind people is that there's no straight line to you do this and then the next clear step is this and then the next clear step is that. Life is going to take you where it's going to take you. And you just got to be open and willing to accept that and ready to act for whatever the next thing that comes your way. So, Okay, so now we're in college. You're on your own. You're an adult. But what is it like in the grown-up world managing your finances? What does money look like during your college time period? What are your friends talking about as it relates to money? Is there any discussion?
Finances, honestly, it wasn't too hard for me as I've gotten older. I think because I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit, like you had said. And for me, it was always, if you don't do it, you're not going to eat. So you better take care of your finances. Even through college, I did have a full scholarship, but not all my needs were met. So I got a job. And I had other friends who were like, oh, I got to get my nails done. I got to buy this outfit. And I was like, well, I got to make sure that these bills are paid, you know, my extra phone bill or this extra bill or whatever extra necessities that I want, because nothing was ever given to me. I couldn't even get financial aid. So Nothing was ever given. I had to always work for it. So my conversations have always been a bit more ahead of my peers because my life was down that kind of path.
You said you were having more responsible conversations. So friend was saying, let's go YOLO and turn up or something. And you said, no, I got these bills I got to pay. Was there any peer pressure around? Come on, girl, let's just have.
Oh, no, absolutely no peer pressure. If they were trying, I didn't feel it or sense it at all. But no, I wouldn't say that I was peer pressured or picked on. They just said, oh, there she goes being responsible again. That's about it.
When did you feel like you first had control over your money? Was that earlier on or was that during this time period? When was it like?
When I got my first contract, I felt like I had control over my money. I had more control than I've ever had before.
So walk us through that process a little bit. What is it like to go from a collegiate athlete competing in track and field to being pursued to become a professional athlete? Can you take us through that process a little bit?
Yeah, my process was quite different from other people's process. I had an extra year of eligibility left in college, but I had graduated already. So I didn't feel like going and staying another year for a master's program that I don't care for. So what I decided to do was I forewent my extra year of eligibility athletically and I signed a professional contract. The college coach was extremely upset with me and he tried to block my blessing a little bit, which made it quite difficult during the negotiation process. But nonetheless, I still got my contract. So my process was quite different from another person's process. But at the end of the day, I still got my contract. I made my first team in 2011 going to Korea. So my process, it wasn't great, but looking back, it wasn't terrible. It didn't hurt me.
So when you say get a contract, what does that mean? Break it down for the listeners that don't know maybe how you make money in track and field.
So it's extremely difficult to make money in track and field. Oftentimes you need a support system or a sponsorship, and that's where the contract comes through. The sponsorship comes from Nike, Adidas, Reebok, whatever Asian people are out there willing to endorse you, give you clothes, give you shoes, pay you to live, help pay your bills, help pay for you to afford the food, the massages, the flights, your agent, your coaching fees. You need that kind of support, which is why you usually get a contract from a sponsor.
So there's no W-2 kind of you're an employee of USA Track and Field. You're kind of like an independent contractor then.
You are an independent contractor. They just give you the check and you do whatever you want to do with it. So I highly encourage those, if they give you a check, you make sure that you allocate all your funds accordingly. You allocate something to taxes, allocate something to charities, allocate something to your future, which is extremely important, allocate something to your coach, to every single thing, and even for you to save money presently.
And so what was it like getting the first big paycheck then? And did you do just what you said the very first time, or were you a little bit overwhelmed? How did you figure out this was more money than you had probably seen during your college or high school career? First time you got paid as a part of having a professional contract. So what happened in that moment? Did you like,
Loving it. I was so excited, but I knew that they pay you certain times a year. So my contract was quarterly. So the money that I got wasn't for me to spend it that month. It was for me to save it and use it wisely through the course of 3 months. So I didn't go crazy because I was afraid to go crazy because I didn't want to be broke.
mm-hmm.
What I would do is I incorporated myself and I had my own personal bank account. And then I had a bank account for my business. And all my money went to my business account. And whenever the first of the month came, I wrote a check from my business to me in the amount that I needed strictly for that month. And that's how I made it through.
From the very beginning? That's really good.
From the very beginning, yeah.
So there was no temptation to go like buy a Bentley or do something crazy.
Oh, no, baby, there was temptation. There will always be temptation. But I was strong. I was not going to fall down that path because I know what happens to people who allow that to happen to them.
Did you have anyone help you figure out, like you said, oh, you need to set some aside for taxes. Oh, you need to incorporate. How did you find the members of your financial entourage that help you navigate initially in the process, or did you do it all on your own?
My accountant was the person who helped me navigate everything. He got me incorporated. He told me what I need to do as far as saving money to the side. But with me being incorporated and just doing payroll, sending myself money every month, I didn't have to worry about saving money for taxes because I was giving myself a W 2. So all I do is put everything in the bank account and make sure that I didn't spend all my money.
Would you say that it's like that overall in the track and field profession? I know a lot of the big sports like basketball, football, they get a reputation for earning a large living and being very frivolous with it. What would you say is the overall attitude in the track and field profession about money?
The overall attitude with track and field, it's extremely disguised, I would say. A lot of people do not have the finances, but they act as if they do because there's a lot of people in the sport who do have the finances and they don't want to look bad. So it's more like a keeping up with the Joneses type thing. I have seen so many people fake it like they got it and I'm just stop while you're ahead. And I guess because you get that much money at one time, you think that it's there for that present moment, but it has to last you for a while. So the mentality with track and field and finances, I say there's a lot of misconception that the athletes have within themselves. And there's a whole lot of unprofessionalism, amateur mentality that's definitely rampant.
What do you mean by amateur mentality?
With the fact that we do not have a salary base, that means that some athletes are able to make a huge, large amount of money, whereas other athletes, they'll do the same or very similar and not make that much. So had we had a salary so we can professionalize ourselves, we will demand that we all get a certain amount of money so we can have this type of lifestyle that they're requiring us to have. And it's not a lifestyle that says, I want a Bentley. It's a lifestyle that says, I need to get a massage. I need to go to Whole Foods or Trader Joe's to get this kind of food. I need a rest, so I can't get this part-time job. I need to pay gym membership. I need to pay my coach.
Sounds like what you're saying is that there's no baseline for what you're going to earn as a professional track and field athlete. It's very objective. Somebody can be in the same event and have similar results and have two very different contracts from their sponsor. But because they feel like they have similar results and you see one person spending a certain way, then the other person feels like kind of pressure to spend that way as well, even though it may be creating some financial stress and strain on them because their contract is not the same. But there's no real transparency to know one way or the other in the sport right now. Is that right?
There absolutely is no real transparency. And the fact is, if you want to be transparent, you can get sued by your sponsor because they tell you do not discuss your finances.
Ah, that's interesting. And so in thinking about that, okay, I can't discuss how much I actually earn from my shoe contract. But are there conversations outside of that, like with your inner circle of other track and field athletes that you're close to? Are you guys talking strategy and talking savings and talking investing? Or is it not really a talked about subject at all? And you just kind of every man and woman for him or herself?
That's pretty much what it is, which is why I say it's a bit of an unprofessional amateur sport because it's every man and woman for himself. We don't want to talk about this. I already have mine. I have this little, so I'm just going to be okay with this little that I have. And that's so small-minded.
Mm-hmm.
If we think about the larger scale and when we stop thinking about what's going on today with us presently, but we think about the next generation and we think about how we can better the sport and make it bigger than us, then that's when I say we're living in a truly professional environment, a truly professional sport.
Yeah, that's a really good point that coming together and creating a community where you can talk and you can be transparent with one another, even if it's not about the numbers. The contract says you can't talk about the numbers. The numbers are not the most important thing, but starting to get together on the strategy and getting together to say that we're going to operate as a community so that we can get baseline numbers in place or something like that is integral. The first step is to let down your guard and start talking about strategy with one another in the first place. So think that's going to be a really important part.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about the cost of being a track and field athlete? So what goes into, I mean, you are your own business, basically. Like you said, you incorporate it. You are the vessel that earns the dollars. If you're performing, you earn more money. If you're not performing, you don't do as well. So what costs go into being a track and field athlete?
The basic cost is, for me, the weight room, my coach, my food, my massages, and traveling expenses, including meals overseas, traveling to overseas. There's another one. I can't think of it right now. Oh, supplements. Duh. That's really important. So those things are the base, and it varies for everybody. I can say when I first hurt my Achilles, I needed to go see somebody. He was charging me $150 per session, and I saw him 5 days a week. So I paid $150 5 times in 1 week. And I was like, hold up, hold up, hold up. I can't do this anymore. It's a waste of money for you to do the same exact thing. But that's how some people charge you. If you don't have insurance, even if you do have insurance, you'll go and then there's going to be this therapist who does know or does not know what they're doing. And sometimes it's just a waste of money. So all in all, I say that medical itself, massages, that can go for about $300 to $500 a month. Food, that's an easy $300 a month. Your coach, depending on who you have as a coach, some coaches charge you $5,000 a month. Some coaches charge you $200 a month. It varies, but you still gonna have to pay for a coach. Your weight room depends on if you had to pay outside expenses for a weight room, for rehab. There's a point in time I was paying $1,600 a month for weight room.
So there are a lot of expenses tied to getting this excellent performance. I think one of the things we take for granted is this idea that people assume that professional athletes earn so much money and they're so privileged. But all the things you just described here are true business expenses. And they go into you investing in yourself so that you can continue to perform well, so that you can continue to earn the living. And sometimes you don't have the resources at the very beginning to even do all those different things that you just named. And so you never get the opportunity to make it to the next level because you can't do all 8 things. Maybe you can only do 3 or 4, or you got to get the free massage versus the $150 massage. And one is just not as good as the other. But it sounds like a significant amount of investment in making sure that you can continue to make money. And that's something else that you also need to plan for when you're organizing your finances as a professional athlete.
Yeah, definitely. And you had said, it sounds like us athletes, we're privileged, and we are privileged. We do have a lot of opportunities, but at the same time, with great power comes great responsibility. So if you have a lot of money coming in, you're most likely going to have a lot of expenses as well. And that's not because you're spending it recklessly. It's just the nature of the beast.
Are there any mistakes that you can think of during the time that you've been organizing your finances? Something that stands out that if I look back on it, I would have done that differently?
I hate to say this, but I loaned some people some money. And sometimes I wish I did not loan them some money.
Did you not get your loan back then?
That's why.
You gave them some money. You planned on loaning it to them, but it ended up being some giving.
But it was a giving. And I don't regret doing it. I just wish that people, as quickly as they ask to give, they will quickly give back.
Mm-hmm.
Not many people have that mentality. So my biggest regret was just giving out some loans to people and thinking highly of them.
So you're saying that if you felt like you needed something or you needed a loan, you couldn't go back to those same people. They're not as giving as you were giving. Yeah.
Nope, not at all.
So have you created a policy around loaning people money now? Is there a criteria, or do you not do it at all anymore?
Well, I definitely don't loan as much as I used to because I don't have what I used to have. But even if I did have what I used to have, I don't know what my policy would be, because for some reason, I feel like I've been so blessed. And if somebody is truly in need and they come to me for help, I can't help but say, if I got it, then I'm going to help you out. So even though it hurts me that I don't receive it back, it'll hurt me more to have it and not give it.
Yeah, I think there's one that says God loves a cheerful giver. So it sounds like you're a cheerful giver.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about where you are now and what's going on in life and how you're organizing yourself and what things you have on the horizon. You've had a nice long track and field career. Is it coming to an end? Are you thinking about transitioning? Are you involved in any other projects in the midst of still competing?
hmm I am planning for the end. I don't know when the end is going to come. At this moment in my life, I've done so much planning that's failed. I'm tired of planning. I'm tired of saying, I'm going to make sure that this happens by this time. I'm just going to prepare myself for something good to happen. And when it happens, it happens. So when am I going to be done with track? I have no idea. But when it happens, I will gracefully bow out of the sport. What am I doing to prepare myself in the event that it happens that I lose track tomorrow? I have my business that I'm starting up as a certified professional personal trainer. I have somewhat of a clientele. I'm going to school to get my master's in clinical psychology. So I want to start my own practice after that. And somehow I want to incorporate exercise and psychology. And those are my two main products. I started a blog last year in 2017, and I'm trying to get back into the whole blog thing, but blogging is exhausting.
It's work. It is work.
It is a lot of work, and I don't necessarily have that time right now to dedicate to blogging. I haven't been running well for 2 years. So with that happening, these sponsors, the contracts, they're not so forgiving to injury. We're not machines, but they want us to be machines. So when I got injured, I wasn't able to perform. Therefore, I couldn't make as much money. So now I have a part-time job as a coach and a personal trainer. And I just cannot dedicate extra time to my blog if I'm a coach, I'm a personal trainer, I'm a student in school, and I'm also trying to get my career back to where it was.
Was that something that you kind of expected or knew about when you initially were going pro in track? Did you think everybody who was competing as a professional athlete was just doing that thing full time and you always would have at least enough to be able to focus on it full time? Or were you aware that there was some that needed to work in addition to pursuing their track and field dreams?
I definitely was aware that there were some that needed to work. I just never thought deeply into it. I was like, oh, they have to have a job. Well, so what are we having for lunch? Like,
It's kind of like it's not going to be me. Like, oh, some people have to do that, but I don't have to do that sort of deal.
I didn't even think about it's not going to be me. I just didn't even think about that. I just know that they have a job and that's all it was to it. I didn't even invest any more time into it. And that's one because I was young. And when you're young, oftentimes you think about yourself. So I was just selfish. I didn't spend time thinking about other people or what their affairs were. But I knew in the back of my mind that one day this sport was not going to be as financially stable for me as I wanted it to be, which is why I started my 401k, which is why I put a lot of money into it earlier on.
Oh, I think that's a really good point to bring up too, is athletes retire twice. We're going to retire once from sport because you don't compete in your sport until you're 65. Sorry. I don't know any professional sport that's doing that. But then you'll retire at some point later on in life where you never plan to work again. And so what do athletes need to be thinking about as it pertains to kind of creating a plan around retiring for the first time and moving on into something else and then retiring for the second time?
Well, I'm just going to say the advice that I would give myself when I was younger, instead of giving athletes in general, the advice I would give myself is to think bigger than being an athlete at a young age. And that's extremely difficult. When you first get this check, you're 22, you got a lot of money coming in, you're the bomb, you're the best athlete in the world. All you think about is you being a good athlete. The thing is, you have to think about you being a good business person, not for when you're 22, not for when you're 23, but a good business person for when you're 45. So my advice would be think about yourself at age 45. And the only way to have a good life then is for you to prepare yourself today. So I would have just started my personal business, my personal training ventures earlier. I would have started other business ventures earlier instead of just be an athlete.
Got it. Diversifying your income streams. Yeah.
And broadening your knowledge. Life is not just about being an athlete. It's one thing to want extra money from other places, but it's another thing to know and have the knowledge about getting money from other places.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Jeneba, this has been awesome. Now we are headed into our final sprint. I have some rapid fire questions for you. Are you ready?
Okay.
Best advice you've ever received?
Rome wasn't built in a day.
Worst advice you've ever received?
I can't remember because it was bad.
Just block it out. Block it out.
Block it out.
Favorite country to race in?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Monaco.
Oh, that's a nice one. You have $20 in your pocket right now. What do you spend it on?
Man, I'm thinking about that because I do have $20 right now. And I'm tight with my money. I don't like to spend it on anything, but I'm thinking Jamba Juice.
$20 on Jamba Juice? That is a good juice.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to spend all the 20. I told you I'm tight with my money.
Oh, okay. Okay. Just 7 or something like that. That jump.
Just like more like 5.
All right. What's your worst money habit?
Ooh, I love to spend money on my nieces. Those babies, they take it out of me.
Ah.
I cannot.
So they're like how you were when you were the little one and there were the older ones and they come showering you with gifts. You now are that older one showering the younger ones with gifts.
I really am. I took money out the bank so I can give it to my nieces because I promised them that I'm going to give them money every time their birthday comes. So I'm going to give them their birthday age in dollars.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your best money habit?
Oh, I allocate all my funds. Every single penny is allocated to something. I got a miscellaneous account. I got a savings account. I got my tithes. I got fast food. I got groceries. Everything is allocated.
Yes. Give every dollar a job. Are you guys listening? All right. What's the most meaningful gift you've ever received? Who was it from and why was it meaningful?
My boyfriend gave me a photo album. But it was a photo album that I had to fill up. So he says, here's an album and just put all our pictures in it and all our adventures that we've had. And I was able to be as creative as I wanted to be with our relationship. So I filled it up and he didn't know what I was doing with it, but it took me over a year to fill it up with pictures because I wanted specific pictures in it. And then I filled it up. I wrote nice little cute notes in it and then I gave it back to him.
Oh. A gift received and a gift given. That's dope. For Bay. Mm-hmm. All right. Last but not least, what is one thing that you would like to improve about your finances in the upcoming year?
I mean, obviously, I want more money because that's what everybody wants. But I want to improve my mentality about my finances. The whole mentality that if I had more, life would be better. I want to change that. I want to be thankful for what I have right now. And just be completely honorable and live in that blessing and that spirit of gratitude with what I have right now, because right now is still better than nothing.
So what's the action item? How are you going to dig in and change your mindset?
I just got to meditate. I got to meditate and I got to pray on it some more because that's more of an internal change that I need to take upon. So I just really got to meditate. I got to pray on it and I got to start reading some scriptures or some YouTube episodes that talk about being grateful with what you have presently.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. Jeneba, this has been awesome. The final sprint was great. You made it to the finish line. You are first place in this episode of the podcast. You are now standing on the podium. And it is your time to shine. So I want you to go ahead and shout yourself out. Tell us how we can support you, where we can find you, what you're up to, that other people need to get in line with or get on board with so that they can help you be great.
Okay, well, hey, everybody. This is your girl, Jeneba, pronounced Jeneba, not Jeneba. I hate when people say my name wrong. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook. Instagram handler is Jeneba Sylvia, JenebaSylvia. Facebook is Jeneba Tarmoh. Right now, my biggest advice to you guys all is to live in the moment and to spend your money wisely. Spend your money like you spend your time, and just make sure that you allocate it to something that is going to pay off, not today, but tomorrow and for your children's children.
Hey, I love it. I love it. I love it. Jeneba, thanks so much. This was a great episode.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed listening to Jeneba's Money Memoir. Today, Jeneba gave us a sneak peek into the finances within the track and field world. She shared about the lack of transparency for various reasons, but one of the major ones being the fear created by the company an athlete signed a contract with. This doesn't just happen to athletes. Employers often create an elusive feeling when it comes to discussing finances. They encourage you to hide the numbers so that they have more leverage, and that ends up bleeding over into an individual's personal money emotion about discussing money. Communication is the most important part of financial literacy. When we know better, we have the opportunity to do better. And it's really not about the numbers, but the strategies. We have to start sharing with one another so that we can all win. Our word of the day today, allocate. Jeneba stressed the importance of allocating every dollar she receives. Allocating simply means assigning every dollar for a specific purpose. I like to say, give every dollar a job. Basically, what happens is when you get your paycheck, you first pause and decide where every dollar of that check is going. We often just take care of the one thing that's the most pressing issue and just keep working our way down until nothing's left. But you really need to stop, pause, decide what you want to do, and then start to take action. Because if you don't tell your money where to go, then you'll definitely end up wondering where it went. Thank you for finding, subscribing, and sharing the Worth Listening podcast today. We hope you found this episode worth listening to. If you have any financial questions, suggestions for guests, or would like to share your own money memoir, please contact us through our website, worth-listening.com.